Hey, what's up? Welcome to the Sleepless Talk podcast. It's Andre here, and today we gotta talk about Fat Joe and the FBA, Foundational Black Americans. So, over the course of the weekend, there was a bit of controversy in the air regarding some of the comments that Fat Joe had made, and it stirred up Black Twitter quite a bit. There was a lot of people that were upset. A lot of other people got involved. So there was a lot of back and forth going on. We know Lord Jamar got upset, voiced his opinion. And I believe, yeah, he voiced his opinion. Fat Joe ended up taking a shot back at him. You had Tariq Nasheed who commented on this as well, since he was referenced in this video that Fat Joe made, which was, by the way, an interview that he had with Math Hoffa. And Math Hoffa himself found himself embroiled in this conflict, right? So there are people who are concerned and upset in regards to how Math Hoffa conducted the interview, or perhaps I should say his lack of action in intervening and perhaps checking Fat Joe when he made several comments, specifically also the use of the N-word. So there's different points to this issue here, right? So you have the confrontational comments, right? And that he made towards the FBAs. You have the use of the N-word, which became an issue, and then you also had the fact that Math Hoffa did not intervene and speak to Joey Crack, Fat Joe, whatever you want to call him, and check him, like I said, on the use of the N-word and standing up for FBAs, if you will. But some of the shots that he was taking, which we're going to go ahead and actually take a look at the other videos. For instance, with Tariq Nasheed was, talking about how Math Hoffa is not an FBA. He's Jamaican, he's a Caribbean dude, and so on and so on. And, so that's kind of what's been going on. So we're just going to go ahead and take a seat back and listen to what Joey, listen to actually the video recording and see what Fat Joe was actually talking about. And, we'll take it from there. So without further ado, let's go ahead and play that clip.
These rumors were made by radical black racists. Let's just say that. Okay? It's a group of these guys that don't want to hear Jamaican, don't want to hear Guyanese, they don't want to hear a black guy that ain't down with them.
Right.
Right? So their job is to criticize anybody who don't look like them or who ain't black American.
Who are these guys?
You want me to say their name? We're going to give them too much clout.
I mean,
the FBA, Foundational Black Authority, whoever the fuck these broke niggas is. I'm just keeping it a buck. And their shit is to attack everybody on Twitter. You see this nigga who run them? Like, your leader? Yo, man, you gotta be fucking kidding me, man. And so they trying to change the narrative. They're not from New York.
Right.
So they telling a whole nother story. This was whoopity doop wop. Yo, bro.
So, yeah. Math Hoffa actually, from what I heard, ended up taking the video down, the interview down, which I'm guessing is a result of the backlash that he's been receiving, right? Yeah, so these comments kind of frustrated a lot of people. It's not everybody, but a lot of people. It's a polarizing issue, right? You have people who agree with the FBA movement. You have others who criticize Tariq Nasheed. And so this is why this became a thing in the black community, right? And it has caused a lot of, like I said, a lot of commotion, a lot of back and forth. You even had Lord Jamar bringing up Farrakhan, for instance, saying that he, in a respectful way, right? Saying that Farrakhan technically is a tether because his mother's from this country, etc., or his father was a foreigner. So it's just a lot going on right now, right? So I'm going to go ahead and play the clip of Tariq Nasheed responding to Fat Joe, and then I'm going to go ahead and talk about my thoughts on the matter, right? And what I really think about the FBA movement, what I think about Fat Joe's comments. Oh, by the way, in case you didn't know, what they were talking about here, what Fat Joe was referencing here, they're not from New York. this and the third. He was talking about the hip hop movement, right? How hip hop became a thing, how it was born, key players in making it popular, influences, etc., etc. And we all know that hip hop was created in New York, right? And it was created in the Bronx. So, and Fat Joe is from the Bronx. Not saying that he was a part of it, not at all. Um, but it's like Fat Joe has always repped being from the Bronx. I mean, he has some, a bit of accolade as far as the hip hop history is concerned. Him, Big Pun. But the issue really became as to whether or not, hip hop was created uh, with the assistance of non FBAs, quote unquote, right? So I seen another clip where Fat Joe was arguing that hip hop was made, it was a 50-50 between African Americans and members of the Latino community, right? So the beginning of hip hop was consisted of both of these groups working together and then thus um, creating hip hop and what we know as hip hop today. Now, I don't really agree with that. I don't think that's the case. I think it was primarily made just by African Americans. They were the main key players in the birth of hip hop, and it was later on, further down the line, that you had people of other communities who joined and participated, began whether it was to imitate or contribute, whatever word you want to use, but they came further down the line. But that's one thing I'd like to say. My correction as far as the Fat Joe situation. But yeah, so this obviously, like I said, it upset a couple of people. Fat Joe, and I'm pretty sure Fat Joe expected this in some way, sense. I've seen him getting bashed all online, on YouTube, on Twitter, etc., etc. But we're gonna go ahead and take a look at what Tariq Nasheed had to say in response to this. Yeah, this is, there are videos, videos of people bashing Tariq Nasheed. In fairness, just as he bashes other people in certain context, when he argues or there's a confrontational situation. This is the response video. It was actually a longer stream. This is just a small portion of that stream. Obviously, we're not gonna go through the whole hour stream. But yeah, so we're just gonna go ahead and take a look and hear what he had to say in response to this. Now, mind you, this came subsequently after Fat Joe's comments. So yeah,
movement, just Fat Joe sitting up there, a white Latino using the N word over and over again, and he's in a room full of Caribbeans. Our brother Math Hoffa, he's Caribbean. From what I understand, many of the other gentlemen in the room were Caribbean, and a lot of people felt a certain way about that too. They felt like, okay, these guys are kind of cock-con and kikiing when this white Latino is talking greasy in a room full of Caribbeans, which is what a lot of people from our lineage has been saying. There's a lot of little secret vitriol there. You understand? And the backlash got so bad, our brother Math Hoffa had to take that video down. He had to take it down. Yeah, the backlash, I don't think Fat Joe was expecting that. I don't think Joe was expecting that. Yeah, there's no small group of anything. There's 43 million foundational black Americans, and they kind of feel a certain way about the actions of a white Latino who's running around here trying to pull rank among black people. After you've been eating on foundational black American culture for this long. This is why they keep trying to crowbar this thing where they created hip-hop 50-50 so they can't look like they're leeching off of foundational black American culture. And again, they're still upset over the film Microphone Check. The movie Microphone Check shut down a lot of those lies. The movie Microphone Check cleared up a lot of lies and rumors, and they cannot sit here and try to use the, well, you, Tariq, y'all ain't from New York. It's a New York thing. You say if you ain't from New York, you can't speak on it. We got a film full of New Yorkers, particularly people from the Bronx, particularly the people who were the pioneers, who were there at the beginning who told the truth about the beginning of hip hop, and it was not 50-50. It wasn't 50-50. Now, we got to understand Fat Joe. People have accused him of being a pathological liar. A lot of these non-FBA people who come from these Caribbean and African backgrounds, unfortunately, lying is kind of a standard practice. This is why a lot of these places are in shambles to the point where they have to flee and their families have to leave, because nobody can build enough trust with each other to stand on business and build an infrastructure the way they need to, because everybody's lying, scheming, scamming. Unfortunately, not all of them, but way too many. Then they'll bring that lying, scheming, scamming disposition over here among us, and we're just not having it. Now, with Fat Joe and the people who support him, because here's another thing, as this stuff is being posted on different social media sites, one thing you'll notice, a lot of Caribbeans, a lot of dark, melanated Caribbeans are sitting up here co-signing Fat Joe. Yep, we agree with Fat Joe. I hate them FBAs. I stand with Fat Joe. Fat Joe ain't it. I mean, those FBAs ain't it. We stand with Fat Joe. Fat Joe telling the truth. So a lot of these Negroid Caribbeans, and some Africans too. Some of y'all Africans are siding with Fat Joe too, and lying with them. Y'all spreading lies with them. One lie is basically saying that Foundation of Black Americans is some kind of group and organization. That's the one lie. The second lie is that there's a leader. Me, I'm the leader. That's another lie. Another lie, they start talking about we're Trump voters. Yeah, there's a bunch of Trump voters, and that FBA, they all of them be voting for Trump. That's another damn lie. There's 43 million Foundation of Black Americans. The majority of them vote Democrat. So that's a lie. More lies. And they wanted to lie about hip hop. And the thing is, we're not accepting lies. Number one, there was no Puerto Rican and black creating hip hop 50-50. That's a lie. The Puerto Ricans were not there in the beginning helping to create hip hop. That's a lie. There were no Puerto Ricans rapping in the early 70s or before. If they say they were, that's a lie. They were not DJing then. That's a lie. They were not b-boying then. They came later. All of that is a lie to say they were. And then when you point out that they weren't there in the very beginning and you can show the pioneers who were there, they started to lie on some of the early pioneers by saying that they were Puerto Rican. Like the first b-boys, Sasa and Trixie. They used to run around here lying that Sasa and Trixie were Puerto Rican. Both of those men are in microphone check. They said, no, we're not no Puerto Rican. We're from South Carolina. We're from the Carolinas. Not only are we not Puerto Rican, when we were dancing, wasn't no Puerto Ricans around. They said this in microphone check. Then they tried to lie. Crazy Legs went on Drink Champs and told that lie that Disco King Mario, who's a very, very unsung pioneer of hip hop, he lied and said he was Puerto Rican. We had Mario's family in microphone check. We ain't Puerto Rican. Nobody in our family is Puerto Rican. We all black people from North Carolina. We had to clear up lies. We're not going to let people just go out here lying their asses off just for the hell of it. Those days are over. Those days are over. We're not letting people lie. And Fat Joe was talking about, FBAs are racist. Yeah, these are some black radical racists and all of this stuff because we ain't letting people lie. No, we're not racist because we're checking people and their lies. You're not going to lie indefinitely. Yeah, because Trixie was light-skinned, they tried to make him Puerto Rican. No, that man said, I am not no Puerto Rican.
So there you have it. The original video is a lot longer, but again, this is just a snippet. I'm glad that even though they're disagreeing, it could be done so on a respectful level. But there are some things that we do have to discuss, right? So obviously, like the which I had said earlier, I believe that African Americans were uh, the pioneers. They were responsible for starting hip hop. Um, and later on, you had other people that came along. But to say 50-50, that's something that I agree with Tariq is just ridiculous. That was not the case. Um, but another thing is this, though. This is so you. The problem here is this, right? You have people who, right, who qualify by Tariq Nasheed's description of what a FBA is, right? You have FBAs who don't necessarily associate with the FBA movement. So I think like when Tariq Nasheed is saying there's 43 million FBAs in America, um, that's by his definition, right, of what a FBA is. But are there 43 million people who identify as FBAs? Absolutely not. Right? So I say this to say that within the African American community, within the black community in America, you have a difference in opinions, right? You have a difference in opinions relating to the identification of African Americans, right? So, and this is nothing new, right? Let's just cut the shit, okay? This is nothing new. This is why we had, before you'd have conversations about um, Pan Africanism. You had others that were for that movement, others who were not. You've had, for instance, like Marcus Garvey was a Pan Africanist, and you have others who had a different opinion as far as who they were and what they were, right? You had some people who did not, and this is FBAs. Tariq Nasheed himself has said that FBAs consist of both, people that were brought here as slaves, right, who according to him had an ethnogenesis and then became their own ethnic group. It also consisted of, or consists of, excuse me, it also consists of uh, Africans that were here, right, long before the Europeans got here, right? So long before the Native Americans, like we're talking about Aboriginals, right? People who traveled from Africa to the United States, parts of North America, South America, and traded with the people then. I mean, this is why you have the book like, They Came Before Columbus by Ivan Van Sertima, who discusses these possibilities and, makes these assertions. So, with that being said, despite all of that, today it's like a different kind of conversation but relating to the same issue, right? Who are, because African Americans have lost their identity as far as, and that's not everybody, right? It's not everybody. You have other people, for instance, like Samuel L. Jackson. You have people like Michael Jai White, right, who recognize a different part of them, right, and they have no issues associating with Africa, for instance, and finding their roots and respecting their roots and honoring their roots back to the motherland. Um, but then you have other people who look at it different, who say, no, our roots are here in the US, right? And that's where you have some people who are like FBAs. So I don't think the way it's presented, like there are 43 million FBAs, is not exactly accurate. Technically, based on the description, right? Yes, but there are people who are African American, who are black, who don't associate with FBAs, who disregard them and who disagree with them. And that's totally fine, right? And I think for me, the problem becomes when people start getting a little bit too offensive, right? What do I mean by this? This is, and I believe Tariq is also kind of responsible for this, right? So if you stumble on some of his videos in which he speaks about tethers, in other words, black people, right? That are not from the United States, specifically speaking. So they could be from the Caribbean, they could be from Africa, Haiti. The tone is very negative, right? What do I mean by this? It's often like name calling, using derogatory terms, and things along those lines. Now, to be fair, sometimes it's in defense, right? Because you have this cultural thing that we've had, this identity crisis that black people have, right? That is in part connected to the trauma incurred either through colonialism or slavery, right? Terrorism, the Jim Crow era, etc., etc. So you have people who are constantly bickering amongst themselves, essentially. And there's this comparison of I'm better than you, you're better than me, or and it's not just with the FBAs. That's another thing I want to make clear. Because for me, I don't find it problematic if people want to say they're FBAs, right? If they say I'm a foundational Black American, I believe this is that. It's a different ethnic group. We have ethnogenesis. We developed our own culture here that's separate from the cultures in different areas. That's fine. I don't really see the big problem with that. Just like how I can recognize that Jamaicans are different than Haitians. They're still the same people. They just have a different way of perhaps talking, right? Different way perhaps of living, cooking, etc., etc. There should be beauty in diversity, right? But the problem is, oftentimes we find ourselves engaging in some form of tribal supremacy, right? And that's one thing that I feel like I hold the people responsible for to a high degree, whether it's Tariq Nasheed, whether it's, even people in Africa. It's this idea, and even Jamaica as well, right? You have Jamaicans who think they're better than Africans, who look at them like less than, right? You have Africans who sometimes look at African Americans as less than. You have African Americans who may look at Jamaicans, who may look at Africans, who look at Haitians like less than. Like, let's just be honest here, right? The African jokes, African booty scratcher jokes, African stink. The Haitians are dirty. And then the other way around is you oftentimes have people who criticize African Americans, right, Black Americans, as being lazy, as just being thugs, and they don't care about education, etc., etc. And I think that's really silly of us, man. I think it needs to come a point in time where we have to start finding a way to bridge the gap, right? We have to find a way to connect with one another instead of sitting here bickering back and forth, sounding like a bunch of house niggas and field niggas arguing, right? And which is why I'm saying, like, I understand where some of them come from, FBAs, and why they want to associate themselves a certain way. That's fine. But whether it's an FBA, whether it's an African, a Haitian, a Jamaican, that idea of supremacy has to go. That idea of we're better than, because when you look at some of, and that should be funny sometimes, right? But there's a certain point in time where you have to separate comedy from reality, right? Because your words have a very real, they have consequences, right? Because now you've developed a situation where you have, like the word tether, for instance, which is now being used in a derogatory way to describe other types of Black people, right? And I think that's just terrible, man. Because if you look a couple years ago, right, maybe I'd say like the 2012s, you wouldn't imagine that this is where we'd be with these types of conversations. I got hip to Tariq Nasheed because of Hidden Colors, and Hidden Colors explored the beauty of Black history. There was no distinction between, it's just the beauty of Black history in general. if you guys enjoy the video, you guys enjoy the content, please be sure to like, comment, subscribe. It helps me out a great deal. As you know, I'm a very small channel. I'm aiming to grow and of course inform the public, and so we can continue to have these conversations and engage in civil discourse. It's always a pleasure for me to speak with you guys. And yeah, man, if you guys have any thoughts, please feel free to post them in the comments section.